All right, good evening, Hayden, Idaho. Calling to order the regular city council meeting. It is Wednesday, November 12th, 2025, approximately 5:02 p.m. May we get a roll call of council members, please?
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yep.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember White is absent. We do have a quorum.
Okay, Ed, do you want to lead us in Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Okay, is anyone aware of any additions or corrections to the agenda? Okay, I'm hearing none. We'll roll into consent. All items on the consent calendar are action items, and they consist of approval of professional services contract with Western Real Property LLC for Hayden Atlas intersection right-of-way acquisition appraisal services, approval of service contract with Prime Time Construction and Excavation Incorporated for on-call mechanical repair services, approval of rental agreement with Prime Time Construction and Excavation Incorporated for a grader to support winter snow response, approval of professional services contract with Welch Comer and Associates Incorporated for Hayden Atlas intersection project survey staking, approval of change order number 10 with Big Sky Corporation for the H6 Force Main project, approval of Interstate Concrete and Asphalt Company change order number 2 for Ramsey Road extension project, approval of Simcoe Construction change order number 7 for the H6 lift station project, ratification of the October 2025 payroll, ratification of bills for payment, and approval of bills for payment. Are there any questions on consent calendar items, council? Hearing none, would someone like to make a motion?
I move that we approve the consent calendar 1A through 1J.
Second.
The motion is second. Is there any discussion on the motion being made? May we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest? Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move into visitor public comment. We have one public comment from Ian, who spoke at our last meeting, and looks like he wants us to be an example for the rest of North Idaho. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Council. Congratulations on the election. I hope my goal is that we can put everything behind us and move forward, losers and winners on it as one community. And yeah, I'm just hopeful to be more involved myself and also get my generation more informed as well as what's going on in this city and just be working together. That's all. I just wanted to hope that we can move forward with good decorum and work together. That's kind of all, and anyone that's listening too, that we can just really work together and find the truth. That's it. That's all. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, we're going to roll into new business. Our first new business item is an action item with Welch Comer Engineers and alternatives analysis and recommendation for Hayden Hutter intersection improvements. And I believe we're going to be discussing options of either a signalized intersection or a roundabout and the considerations for each. Welcome, Melissa.
Hello. All right, I'm Melissa Cleveland from Welch Comer Engineers. I'm the project manager for this project. And yes, I'm going to walk you through the alternatives analysis for the Hayden and Hutter intersection. Okay, so this is the project location there at Hutter and Hayden, kind of on the edge of the city. And so you might first ask, why is this project a need? And what we kind of look at is level of service, delay, accidents that are occurring at an intersection. Today, it's two-way stop control, which means that Hayden Avenue doesn't stop and Hutter does. And you're getting to the point where there's so much traffic on Hayden that people are starting to make poor decisions on Hutter and trying to shoot the gap, and you're seeing some crashes. In the last 4 years, you've had 4 injury crashes, so that's starting to get fairly significant. Sometimes when this happens at a two-way stop control intersection, you may just make it a 4-way stop. But in this case, making it a 4-way stop isn't a long-term solution. So you would have a level of service of F, and you would have cars backed up in every direction. So we're looking at, okay, we've convinced ourselves that there's a need here, and then we move on to what are the alternatives. So there's definitely a need for an intersection improvement. Sometimes when you look at an intersection, one alternative just kind of rises to the top right out the gate, and you're like, oh, this one has to be a roundabout. Like down at 4th and Honeysuckle, that's an example. Like that just lended itself to a roundabout. This one, there were several different kind of, back of napkin concepts out in the world on this intersection, and I don't think that anyone was sold that that either a roundabout or a signal was the way to go. So we started into a concept phase to see which one was going to be most effective. Both, in this instance, both could fit, both seemed like they could be cost effective, and both kind of fit the corridor. And I'll get into that a little bit. There was no clear advantage, so we moved into the concept phase. Now, an alternatives analysis objectively compares both alternatives with all of these criteria. So we've got level of service, delay, queue lengths, cost, safety, right-of-way needs, corridor consistency, utility conflicts, kind of timing, and I'll get into that a little bit, mobility, maintenance, and then what does the public think? So level of service, just to give you a real quick high level so that you know what I'm talking about. The city has a standard. They don't want to build something today that has a level of service worse than D 20 years from now, at the end of its design life. So that's why I kind of highlighted that one. And what level of service D means is that it's tolerable in an urban environment, which you are, but there's noticeable congestion at that point. So that was our kind of our standard. And so what we did is we looked at a signal and a roundabout and what would the configuration of these intersections need to be so that they were every movement had level of service D or better in 2046. So for the signal, you need left turn lanes on all legs, but you also need right turn lanes for the northbound and the westbound traffic to get everything to function at level of service D or better. The roundabout, it's just a standard roundabout that you see everywhere, with the exception of you'll need 2 westbound lanes on Hayden. So if you can see, kind of small, but there's 2 lanes, which Hayden Avenue is a 5-lane section, or will be a 5-lane section, which means that there's 2 westbound lanes anyway on Hayden. So both of those would go through the roundabout. Okay, don't get overwhelmed. We're not actually gonna dive into this. What I'm showing you here is that with this intersection configuration, both options meet that level of service standard of D or better in 2046. But across the board, the roundabout performs better. So it has lower delay, shorter queue lengths, and in both the AM and PM peak hours. Another thing to keep in mind with a roundabout is that when you're in off-peak times of the day, they perform really well and outperform signals in every instance because you're not waiting at a red light and you're the only person there. I'm sure you've all experienced that. Another thing I wanted to point out was this longest queue. Even though it's level of service C, this is for the signalized intersection, the longest queue would be westbound Hayden at 660 feet. That's more than 30 cars. So even though it technically meets your level of service standard, you would start to get, again, those really long queue lengths 20 years from now, but that's what we look at. Cost, they're very similar. Right now, we're at the concept phase, and so we have some pretty rough numbers. I think the roundabout's coming in a little bit cheaper, but again, not close enough to, like, these are pretty similar in cost. Safety. One of the things that the roundabout does is slow people down. And so if you can tell from the way we've laid out the concept, we have parts of the design actually naturally slow people down as they enter it. I don't know if you've driven through the one at Hutter and Lancaster yet. It just opened, but it's kind of similar where it slows you down as you come into it. So you cannot go through that intersection at 45 miles an hour, which is what both roadways are signed. At a signal, you can, right? If it's green, you just keep going. And sometimes people don't notice that it's red and run the red light. So because roundabouts naturally lower the driver's speed, there's less severe crashes. So that's where the safety benefit of a roundabout comes up, is by slowing the speeds. At the open house, I had some really interesting conversations, and one person from the public mentioned, yeah, I get what you're saying, but roundabouts, you have so many fender benders. And I was thinking, I wonder if that's true, because there's not really a lot of research on that. And so I pulled the crash data from 4th and Honeysuckle, which has been in for 5 years now, I think. And what I found is that there's been 4 crashes, and they've all just been very minor. So I think that that kind of shows you that, that these are a good solution, and the research does show that they have substantially fewer injury and fatal crashes. So when I was having the conversation at the open house, I was asking this person, well, how many fender benders could you stomach for one fatality? And it's kind of like 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, so I mean, because they're so great with respect to fatal and injury accidents, that's why they rise to the top safety-wise. But just to point out, roundabouts can be less clear for people that are hearing or vision impaired. And so we would probably install what are called those RRFBs to help people cross the road. And I do recognize that signals do set a clear priority, so at a roundabout, you have to decide, can I go? At a signal, it's clear, green, red, right? And so I do understand that came up at the open house. I agree with them, but when the priority is neglected at a signal, like you run a red light, you're running a red light at 45 miles an hour. That's a serious crash. Okay, corridor consistency. There's roundabouts around or roundabouts planned at Meyer, Atlas, and Ramsey. There's a signal to the south. At Prairie and at Lancaster, a roundabout just opened. So I think corridor consistency-wise, you could go either way. I think the public would be fine either way. Right-of-way, the signal needs less right-of-way. But this is an instance where all the right-of-way that's needed is open fields, farm fields. So there's really pretty low impact for the right-of-way that is needed for the roundabout. They both need right-of-way, but the signal needs quite a bit less. Heavy vehicles. So this picture is from the Hutter and Lancaster roundabout. There's some anecdotal discussion, I would say, at the open house that truck drivers don't like going through roundabouts. I don't hear that from the truck drivers themselves, but it's a public perception. And so this is a truck, not a huge truck, but a truck going through that Hutter and Lancaster roundabout, just, the back tires up on the truck apron, just like they're supposed to. So they're designed so that the trucks can do that. I do agree that driving in a perfectly straight line is easier than going around the roundabout, but they're designed to handle that. That's what they're for. Other miscellaneous considerations, the signal equipment right now has super long lead times. It can be 12 months or more. So if The desire is to build something this next summer, which I don't know if that's going to happen or not. That's something to consider, that the signal equipment is super far out. Signals have higher emissions and noise, and that's from the braking and starting and stopping of the vehicles. Roundabouts have more landscaping and kind of gateway opportunities. I think you can see that at 4th and Honeysuckle, how nice that one looks. Signals rely on power to operate, and obviously the roundabout does not. So in a power outage, the signal will go to flashing red, and you'll have backups in all directions. And the signals also just require more frequent maintenance from your staff. Somebody has to replace equipment. You have seasonal timing plans to go program in and that type of thing. Okay, so public opinion, what do the people think? So on the 29th, we had an open house, and of the comment forms that we received, 11 preferred the roundabout, 5 preferred the signal, and then we just received one more today that was for the roundabout, I would say. And in your packet, you were also missing 3 others, and so I added those into this slide. And 2 more were for the roundabout and 1 for the signal. So the numbers here, the 11 and 5 are accurate. Okay, so what does all of this mean and what do we think? So our recommendation is that the roundabout outperforms the signal on most of the criteria. And the ones where it doesn't, the right-of-way, isn't enough of a concern for us to want to lean in that direction. So we would recommend moving forward with the roundabout. So the council action needed tonight is to direct staff, to direct us, to move forward with either the final design of the signal or the roundabout. Next steps are preparing those final construction drawings and then have right-of-way acquisition. And our deadline is spring of 2026. What questions do you have?
I got one.
Yes.
It says fiscal impact. This item has no fiscal impact to the city of Hayden.
Dulcie might need to respond.
So this particular action item is based off of the design, which has already been accounted for. There, obviously, every decision has some cost impacts, but as Melissa kind of discussed, the cost between the signal and the cost between the roundabout are plus or minus the same, or in the same ballpark, and so there's not a huge fiscal impact one way or the other on your action tonight.
So that leaves the question, is Post Falls Highway District going to contribute to the construction of whatever we do?
So as you may recall, Lisa, some of the development in this vicinity were written letters that this particular intersection was an extraordinary impact.
Right.
And so for their developments to continue, they have to come to the table to help solve this problem. And so we are looking to them for funding for a component of the construction of this project.
Okay, and then with the, when you showed the numbers on the construction cost, if you could pull up that slide, I saw nothing for cost of right-of-way.
It's in there.
It's going to be more.
So this is just construction here, and then this includes right-of-way and engineering and all of that.
And a breakdown is in your council packets in Appendix A in the
Okay.
report that Welch
Thank you.
Rock.
Yeah, there's 2, and there's some improvements with pedestrian facilities and things that we might not build on the west side because it doesn't connect to anything. So that's why there's kind of 2 columns with and without those future areas. What else?
Other questions, Tom?
Yeah.
With regards to the roundabout design, there will be more right-of-way that has to be obtained through private land purchase.
Correct.
Have any of the owners of those parcels been contacted to seek their preference, or I shouldn't say preference, their lack of or comfortableness with one versus the other as far as how much right-of-way they'd have to give up?
Yeah, so all of the property owners impacted by this project have already been contacted and provided all of the concepts presented here tonight. I haven't received a super strong opposition from any of them on
Okay,
either of the.
does that mean there was some opposition or just that they're neutral?
I would say.
More accurate,
Yeah.
neutral.
Okay.
Yeah.
And.
We
and
talked to some of them at the open house too, and they, yeah, seemed amenable.
Yeah, well, you made the comment about the open prairie, but that's really only one corner. The other three corners actually have dwelling units on them and closer to the roads, and that's part of the reason why I asked this question. So,
One of the property owners is one of the developers impacted directly with the construction of this project.
okay,
And another one is a commercial property that is interested in developing their land. And then the one that is most impacted, that has a residence on it today, are the party that seem to be amenable to working with us.
okay. That was my only question.
Okay, Ed, anything? Melissa, I know you may not know the answer, but if the Hutter bypass is built up Hutter, will that project basically overwrite whatever decisions made by council? In other words, if we install X and the Hutter bypass goes in and, you know, the road's expanded and changed out, I assume they would just build over whatever decision was made here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what's important to think about is what the timing might be for if and when a Hutter bypass goes in. This is designed for 20 years, so if anything actually was constructed within 20 years out there, it's possible that this intersection would change.
Fair enough, thank you. And then,
Made a mistake.
I know those are the two options. Were there any other options discussed? Any different way of moving traffic?
No, just putting in a four-way stop, which quickly doesn't work.
Right.
No, nothing else that would be really cost-effective.
Okay, thank you. So council, I think you're being asked to, unless you have any more questions, to give staff direction and on moving forward with final design.
You're seeking a
If the council's ready for a motion. yeah.
motion?
Unless you want to discuss it more?
Well, I think it's clear the roundabout's the right way to go, so I'll make the motion that we authorize things to move forward to build the roundabout.
Okay. Second.
Can we also add into that?
Sorry, that was
I know.
very
No,
improperly worded.
That was good. There was one more component of adopting the roundabout into our master plan.
Okay, so let me rephrase this. I motion that we approve the roundabout design for Hayden and Hutter and that we adopt that design into the master plan. Did I get it? Master, yeah, almost.
Transportation master plan.
Hey, I'm 95% of the way there. I was-
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion being made?
I'd just like to make a few comments if I may. Today, I was at a red light, it turned green, and 2 seconds into the green, there were still cars coming through the red light. And I think that as the area grows more, it's going to be worse and worse and worse. And that's why I think purely from a safety standpoint that the roundabout is the way to go. The other thing is if there's ever a power outage, your lights go red, or if they have a battery backup and a roundabout, we don't have to worry about that. So I think that everything that you presented here says roundabout, and I agree with that, so.
I do have one question as it pertains to the motion I forgot to ask earlier. Within the drawings, are there accommodations for bike or pedestrian travel, I assume?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Okay, may we get a roll call vote, please?
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest? Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Okay, our next item is,
Can we get a quick break?
Yes, thanks.
I guess we'll take a 3-minute break.
Thanks for looking out for us cyclists.
All right, we're resuming here under item 3B, Marks Ranch Final Plat and Acceptance of Infrastructure. For council's just general knowledge, normally a final plat goes into consent, but this item was discussed with us previously, and I didn't want council to think that we were operating anything but transparently, so I asked staff to please put this under new business. We're all abreast of what's going on with Marks Ranch. We all know what a final plat is. Do you all have any questions before wanting to make a motion on this?
The only question I have, Mayor, is that we have a temporary roundabout that's at the south end of the property. Do we have any idea when that will be resolved and the road will go through? It doesn't affect my decision, I'm just curious.
It's not a roundabout, it's just a turnaround.
Okay,
So-
yeah, sorry.
I'm sitting going, what?
Oh, rats. I thought we were gonna get around.
No.
Turner.
So that was one of their requirements for their completion of their final plot, was that they had to either have that road tie into another road or have a successful turnaround that met the minimum requirements of international fire codes. So that will be there until such time as the road is completed through there. So, and each plat phase having to stand alone required that they have to do either of those, and they chose the turnaround. Now you got me saying it.
Yeah, that's where, I think Alan said that originally, and that's where I got it from. So do we have any idea roughly 6 months, a year? Do we know? It all depends on the sellout or the build out of the,
It depends on the timing of the other
Okay.
phases or developments happening adjacent.
okay, thank you.
And just for clarity, the public, any discrepancies with the plat were worked out between the developer and the staff. In other words, all the requirements for the final plat approval.
Yeah, and those that were given, I guess, another option are listed as either a bonding or you'll see it on the recommendations that staff has put together as far as the memo is concerned.
I do have some questions, and these may be outside the bounds of this decision, but this is the first time I've got to see this. And so there are a few details I noted. One is Laprille and Linfield roads show being stubbed off, but I already see they're working those. Is that another?
That's a different phase.
That's a different phase? Okay. There is a tract of land in the northeast corner of Emerald Estates called Park Block 21. Is that county land?
I'd have to,
If it's an airboat, it would be, wouldn't it?
it's not.
Well,
part
I
of
don't
this
know,
map.
because my first question is accessibility, because it's sandwiched between other lots.
Well, regardless, so that's outside of the scope of what the developer is required to do.
That's why I prefaced my questions.
Sure, I appreciate
Okay,
that.
so it's irrelevant, but can I get an answer to that question sometime? No,
That is the county's plat.
that's county land. Okay. What is Tract A? I've walked the bike path there and I've seen that. Is that stormwater control?
It is.
Okay.
Good questions. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve this, sorry, what's the official description?
Marks Ranch final
Marks
plat
Ranch final plat.
and acceptance of infrastructure.
Second.
With the conditions of staff, as noted.
With the
Someone else want to do it instead of me?
So if you look at the memo, we provide you a draft for your benefit.
I'm looking for the right wording.
I know we do like it when there's a suggested motion on the memo.
There is.
Is there?
Right.
I didn't think there was
Yeah,
on
it's
that
the
one.
first line. It says staff recommends city council approve the final plat and accept the public infrastructure and permit the mayor to sign the final plat.
So moved.
So moved.
I'd already moved on.
Excuse me, I have to finish contingent upon the completion of the following items and then list those. So just. as
It is.
stated.
I had already moved on to the next agenda item on the computer.
You can just say as read.
As read.
Okay, so we have a motion
Second.
and we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? May we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember DePriest?
Yep.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Okay, our next action item is limited to the Arts Commission. The Arts Commission wishes to give themselves, not the city, a new logo, but I believe they didn't want to step out without making sure that council did not have an issue with that. So this one's pretty minor, frankly, unless council has any questions. So Would like to make a
Sure.
motion?
I would make a motion to approve the Arts Commission's logo contest.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, could I also just acknowledge, and I think for the record, to include in the motion, the monetary prize of $200?
And the monetary prize of $200.
Second.
Thank you. Yes, and since it's an
I
expenditure.
do feel like that was part of that ask and it needs to be addressed.
We're just a bunch of headless chickens up here.
All right, may I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Schaefer,
Yes.
Council President Roder.
Yes.
Councilmember
Yes.
DePreez.
Okay, our last action item is to consider the appointment of Shauna Wright to the Arts Commission. Questions? Or would someone like to make a motion?
I'm afraid to make a motion because I never get it.
This one I hope
done.
is easy enough, so I'll take a shot at it. I would move to approve the appointment of Shauna Wright to the Arts Commission.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
All right.
May we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Schaefer.
Yes.
Council President
Yes.
Roder. Councilmember
Yes.
DePreez.
Okay, we're going to move on to the city administrator report and calendar review.
I just want to remind council that because of the holidays this month, that in January, that when the agenda was set for the year, the sole meeting of the month at the time was intended to be November 18th, which threaded those holidays. So it's not our typical second and fourth Tuesday, it's the third Tuesday. So it'll be next week, which is why we needed to have it today, so we'd have time to prepare for that. So we're in the midst of putting that agenda packet together. I did send an email to all of you ahead of time to let you know some of the heftier items on that, which is why we broke up that meeting from this meeting, and would ask that if you have questions ahead of time, that you get plenty of time to review that information and let us know ahead of time if you have questions. But on that agenda is the comprehensive plan public hearing, the public hearing for the expansion of the HURA district, and then the audit report and acceptance for 2024. So potentially, hopefully not a longer meeting because we broke it up, but hopefully with enough time, a chance to read those documents. Other than that, unless there's any questions, I have no updates.
Any questions for Lisa? I'd like to use the time to real quickly say thank you to our Veterans Commission and to our Recreation Department and Parks staff. We had a very wonderful Veterans ceremony. Thank you to the council members. You all showed up, and we had a wonderful turnout with the public. It was very nice, so awesome. I don't see anybody here tonight for law enforcement, so we're going to scoot past that report. Does any council member have a report for the body? Hearing none. Any requests for future agenda items? Okay, I'm hearing none. I'll take a motion to adjourn if we want.
So move.
We're adjourned.